So you talk to yourself when no one is around. Good. Most people panic when they hear that. They think it means weakness. They are wrong. Talking to yourself is not noise. It is processing. It is control. It is awareness without an audience. And if you do it often, you likely carry traits most people cannot handle. Let us break them down. These civilized people, you talk to yourself because you refuse to stay confused. Silence is where most people run from their own thoughts. You walk straight into them. When you speak out loud, you force clarity. A thought that lives only in the head can hide. Once spoken, it has to make sense or fall apart. That is awareness in action. You notice patterns in your behavior that others miss. You catch yourself reacting the same way again and again. These civilized people, you replay moments not to punish yourself, but to understand them. Why did I say that? Why did this trigger me? What was I actually afraid of? These questions come out of your mouth because your mind demands answers. That habit builds precision. Most people outsource self-understanding. They wait for feedback. They wait for conflict. They wait for someone else to explain who they are. You do not wait. You audit yourself in real time. You narrate your decisions. You argue with your excuses. You call out your own nonsense before anyone else gets the chance. That is rare. Talking to yourself slows impulsive thinking. It creates distance between emotion and action. Instead of reacting instantly, you hear yourself think. That pause changes everything. It turns raw feeling into structured insight. Anger becomes information. Fear becomes data. Doubt becomes a signal to examine facts. This is not emotional weakness. It is emotional literacy. You also develop a sharper internal compass. You know when something feels off. You know when you are lying to yourself. Saying thoughts out loud exposes inconsistencies. Your voice does not tolerate vague thinking. You either mean what you say, or you hear the contradiction immediately. That trains honesty with yourself, and honesty creates alignment. People with low self-awareness stay busy. They drown discomfort in noise. Scrolling, talking, consuming. Anything to avoid hearing their own mind. You choose the opposite. You sit alone and speak. You listen to yourself. You face what comes up. That builds psychological stamina. Over time, this habit sharpens identity. People, you know what you value because you have said it 100 times out loud. People, you know what you will not tolerate because you have rehearsed those boundaries privately. You know where you compromise too much because you have argued with yourself about it. Your sense of self becomes defined, not borrowed. This is why you rarely feel lost for long. You might feel uncertain. You might feel pressure. But you are never completely disconnected from yourself. You always have access to your own reasoning process. You can course correct without an audience. That makes you resilient. Self-talk also strengthens accountability. You do not hide behind excuses as easily. When you say them out loud, they sound weak. You hear the gaps. You hear the avoidance. That pushes you to do better, not because someone is watching, because you are listening. This level of self-awareness intimidates people who live on autopilot. They mistake it for overthinking. It is not. It is conscious living. You are present in your own mind. People. You are not drifting through decisions. You are choosing them. Talking to yourself is not random chatter. It is deliberate self-engagement. It keeps you calibrated. It keeps you honest. It keeps you awake while others sleepwalk through their own lives. You talk to yourself because you refuse to be ruled by emotion. When pressure hits, most people lose control. They react fast. They regret later. You do something different. You speak. That single act creates distance between feeling and action. When emotions stay trapped in the head, they grow wild. They mix, they exaggerate, they lie. Speaking them out loud forces order. Fear sounds smaller when you hear it. Anger becomes specific instead of explosive. Confusion turns into questions instead of panic. Your voice slows the storm. You use self-talk as a regulator. When stress rises, you do not suppress it. You label it. I am anxious. I am frustrated. I am overwhelmed. Naming emotion reduces its intensity. This is not motivational talk. This is neurological. The brain calms when emotion becomes language. Most people depend on others to regulate them. They need reassurance. They need distraction. They need validation. When that support disappears, they collapse. You trained yourself to self-stabilize. You coach yourself through moments others avoid. That builds internal strength. You also interrupt destructive loops. Negative thoughts love silence. They repeat unchecked. When you say them out loud, they lose authority. You hear how extreme they sound. Oh, you challenge them immediately. That is not denial. That is correction. These civilized people, talking to yourself gives you command over impulses. Instead of acting on the first urge, you narrate it. Oh, I want to react. I want to escape. I want to say something reckless. Once spoken, the urge weakens. Awareness cuts momentum. This habit trains patience under pressure. You slow yourself down intentionally. You breathe between sentences. You choose words instead of actions. That pause saves you from mistakes others repeat for years. You also recover faster from emotional hits. Disappointment does not linger as long. You process it immediately. You talk through what happened. You extract the lesson. You move forward. No emotional backlog. No silent resentment. People who cannot regulate emotion avoid being alone. Silence exposes chaos. People, you welcome isolation because it is where you recalibrate. You do not numb discomfort. You decode it. That makes you emotionally durable. Self-talk also builds confidence under stress. When things go wrong, you do not spiral. You guide yourself. Focus, slow down, next step. People, this internal direction keeps you functional when others freeze. You are not emotionally detached. You are emotionally skilled. You feel deeply, but you do not drown. You observe emotion without becoming it. That is control. This trait shows most during conflict. Instead of escalating, you step back internally. You talk yourself through restraint. You choose response over reaction. That earns respect even when no one sees the process. Over time, this creates emotional trust in yourself. You know you can handle pressure. You know you will not self-destruct when things get hard. That certainty reduces fear of challenge. You enter difficult situations calm, not reckless. Talking to yourself is not weakness. It is emotional discipline practiced in private. It is how you stay steady when the room is burning. People. You talk to yourself because your mind solves problems in motion. Thinking silently keeps ideas vague. Speaking forces structure. When you hear your own reasoning, gaps appear immediately. That sharpens logic. You break complex problems into manageable pieces by talking them through. You restate the issue. You test one option at a time. You reject weak ideas fast. This saves mental energy. It also prevents overwhelm. Most people think once and hope they are right. You iterate, you revise. You argue with your first answer. You ask yourself why it would fail. You simulate consequences out loud. This builds stronger solutions. Self-talk improves working memory. When you verbalize steps, you hold them longer. This matters in planning, learning, and execution. It is why professionals in high-pressure fields use verbal cues. Pilots, surgeons, athletes. When they speak to stay precise, you do the same instinctively. You also catch errors earlier. A mistaken thought hides easily. A mistake spoken exposes itself. You hear contradictions. People, you notice missing steps. You fix problems before they cost you time or credibility. Talking to yourself improves focus. It anchors attention to the task. Distractions lose power when you narrate what you are doing. You stay present. You stay intentional. This matters in a world built to fragment attention. You rehearse decisions before acting. You test scenarios. If this happens, then I do this. If that fails, I pivot here. This mental simulation reduces risk. It increases confidence when action is required. You also learn faster. Explaining concepts to yourself strengthens understanding. If you cannot explain it out loud, you do not understand it yet. Self-explanation exposes weak comprehension. That pushes deeper learning. This habit builds strategic thinking. You do not jump to conclusions. You explore paths. You weigh trade-offs. You think 2 or 3 steps ahead. Most people react to the moment. You prepare for what follows. You are comfortable with complexity. Talking through it prevents paralysis. You do not need perfect clarity to move forward. You refine as you go. That keeps momentum alive. Problem solving through self-talk also builds independence. You do not need constant input. You generate answers internally. That speeds execution. It also strengthens trust in your judgment. People mistake this for overthinking. They are wrong. Overthinking loops without progress. Your self-talk moves toward resolution. It produces decisions. You turn confusion into a process. You turn uncertainty into a system. You do not wait for clarity. You create it by speaking. These civilized people, you talk to yourself because you do not surrender your thinking to the crowd. When you are alone, there is no performance, no approval, no social reward, only truth. That is where independent thought is built. Most people borrow opinions. They absorb moods. They repeat what sounds safe. You do the opposite. You interrogate ideas privately. You ask if they make sense to you. Not if they are popular. Not if they get applause. Self-talk turns you into your own debate partner. You challenge beliefs instead of defending them blindly. You argue both sides. You pressure test assumptions. You allow yourself to be wrong. That flexibility strengthens intelligence. You do not confuse confidence with stubbornness. When logic beats ego, you change your mind. You say it out loud. That takes discipline. Most people cling to identity. You cling to accuracy. Talking to yourself protects you from groupthink. Crowds reward certainty, not truth. Silence lets bad ideas spread. You pause. You think. You separate fact from emotion. This prevents you from acting on borrowed outrage or borrowed fear. These civilized people, you also build internal validation. You decide what makes sense before checking reactions. Praise does not inflate you. Criticism does not crush you. Your standards come from inside. That makes you stable. Independent thinkers tolerate solitude. You are comfortable being alone with your reasoning. You do not need constant input to feel grounded. This allows deeper thought, longer focus, better judgment. Self-talk helps you clarify your values. You articulate what matters. You repeat it. You refine it. Values spoken become rules. Rules guide decisions. This reduces hesitation when pressure hits. You also notice when external narratives conflict with your experience. You trust evidence you can verify. You question authority when it contradicts reality. This is not rebellion. It is discernment. People without independent thought react emotionally to disagreement. They feel attacked. You feel curious. You examine why you disagree. You look for blind spots. That makes conversation productive instead of defensive. This trait shows strongest when stakes are high. You do not rush to align with the loudest voice. You pause. You think through consequences. You choose deliberately. Talking to yourself builds intellectual backbone. You do not bend easily under pressure. You listen. You decide. You stand by your reasoning. This is why you often see patterns others miss. You are not distracted by noise. You are not hypnotized by consensus. You think from the inside out. You talk to yourself because your mind rehearses the world before it happens. Most people react. You anticipate. You simulate outcomes. You try conversations you might have. You test arguments. You explore possibilities in private, silently training for the chaos that will come. When a challenge arises, you are prepared. You have already played it out. You have already weighed reactions, adjusted strategies, and planned contingencies. Other people panic because they have not rehearsed mentally. You move with calm precision because you already know the battlefield. Your self-talk turns imagination into foresight. You visualize consequences. You practice responses. You identify obstacles before they appear. This is not daydreaming. It is preparation. It is mental training for the unpredictable. You also sharpen creativity. When you speak ideas aloud, you hear them in full. You notice connections you might have missed silently. You combine concepts, test metaphors, and explore angles that others dismiss. Speaking makes abstract thought tangible. That is how innovation is born in your mind before it ever touches the world. You evaluate your own ideas critically. You ask hard questions. What works here? What fails there? How will others respond? Most people avoid this. They hope instinct will be enough. You know, instinct alone is unreliable. You speak test and refine. You practice strategy constantly. You replay decisions from the past to learn. You simulate future conflicts to anticipate problems. You rehearse negotiations, conversations, and actions. You prepare mentally so the first step you take is informed, not blind. Self-talk also strengthens adaptability. When reality shifts unexpectedly, you adjust faster. Your mind has already explored multiple paths. When the unexpected arrives, you choose the most effective route. Others scramble. You pivot. You also gain confidence under uncertainty. Because you have rehearsed in private, you know your options. You trust your judgment. You act decisively. That decisiveness often intimidates others who rely on approval or consensus. Talking to yourself creates a private lab for your imagination. You run experiments verbally. You explore ideas before committing resources or energy. You refine, discard, or strengthen concepts quietly. By the time action is required, your mind is sharp and ready. This habit cultivates mental agility. You think in scenarios, probabilities, and consequences. You see patterns others miss. You plan for chaos before it arrives. That is why leaders, strategists, and innovators often talk to themselves. They are not odd, they are prepared. By constantly simulating, rehearsing, and evaluating, you train foresight, you respond, you adapt, you create, and you act before others even recognize the problem. Well, your self-talk is the engine behind this preparedness. It is private, quiet, relentless, and highly effective. So if you talk to yourself when you are alone, do not stop. You are not broken. You are practicing, and most people never do.